Hello, Sycamore. Well, it's the end of the day now, so it's time for the story. We're going to carry on reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think Mrs. Jenkins almost finished chapter 14, so I'm going to finish that off first and then read chapter 15. So get comfy, pin back your listening ears, and we'll start. I think it was quite a large party of people when you came to think of it. There were 9 grown-ups and 5 children. So that's 14 in all. So you can imagine there was a good deal of pushing and shoving as they hustled and bustled down the passage, trying to keep up with the swift little figure in front of them. "Come on," cried Mr. Wonka. "Get a move on. We'll never get round today if you dawdle like this." Soon he turned right off the main corridor into another slightly narrower passage. Then left again, then right, then left, then right. Then left, then right again. The place was like a gigantic rabbit warren, with passages leading this way and that in every direction. "Don't let go of my hand," whispered Grandpa Joe. "Notice how all these passages are sloping downwards," called out Mr. Wonka. "We're now going underground. All the most important rooms in my factory are deep down below the surface." "Why is that?" somebody asked. "There wouldn't be nearly enough space for them up on top," answered Mr. Wonka. "These rooms you're going to see now are enormous. They're larger than football fields. No building in the world will be big enough to house them. But down here, underneath the ground, I've got all the space I want. There's absolutely no limit. So long as I hollow it out." Mr. Wonka turned right. He turned left. He turned right again. The passages were sloping steeper and steeper downhill now. Then, suddenly, Mr. Wonka stopped. In front of him, there was a shiny metal door, and the party crowded round. On the door, in large letters, it said, "The Chocolate Room." Chapter 15, The Chocolate Room. "An important room, this," cried Mr. Wonka, taking a bunch of keys from his pocket and slipping one into the keyhole of the door. "This is the nerve centre of the whole factory, the heart of the whole business. And so beautiful. I insist on my rooms being beautiful. I cannot abide ugliness in factories. In we go then, but do be careful, my dear children. Don't lose your heads. Don't get overexcited. Keep very calm." Mr. Wonka opened the door. 5 children and 9 grown-ups pushed their way in, and what an amazing sight it was. They were looking down upon a lovely valley. There were green meadows on either side, and along the bottom of it there flowed a great big river. What's more, there was a tremendous waterfall halfway along the river, a steep cliff over which the water curdled and rolled in a solid sheet and then went crashing down into a boiling, churning whirlpool of froth and spray. Below the waterfall, and this was the most astonishing sight of all, a whole mass of glass pipes were dangling down into the river from somewhere high up in the ceiling. There must have been a dozen of them. How many is a dozen? You're right, it's 12. 12 in a dozen. So there must have been 12 of them at least, and they were sucking up the brownish muddy water from the river and carrying it away to goodness knows where. And because they were made of glass, you could see the liquid flowing and bubbling. And above the noise of the waterfall, you could hear the never-ending sucking sound of pipes as they did their work. Graceful trees and bushes were grown along the riverbanks, weeping willows and alders and tall clumps of rhododendrons with their pink and red and mauve blossoms. In the meadow, there were thousands of tiny little buttercups. They're those little yellow flowers you see in the meadows. "There!" cried Mr. Wonka, dancing up and down and pointing his gold-topped cane at the great brown river. "It's all chocolate. Every drop of that river is hot melted chocolate, the finest quality, the very finest quality. There's enough chocolate in there to fill every single bathtub in the entire country and all the swimming pools as well. Isn't that terrific? Just look at my pipes. They suck up the chocolate and carry it away to all other rooms in my factory where it's needed. Thousands of gallons an hour. Thousands and thousands and thousands. The children and their parents were too flabbergasted to speak. They were staggered. They were dumbfounded. They were bewildered and amazed. They were completely bowled over by the hugeness of the whole thing. They simply stood and stared. The waterfall, said Mr. Wonka, is most important. It mixes the chocolate, it churns it up, it pounds it, it beats it, and it makes it light and frothy. No other factory in the world mixes chocolate by waterfall. But it's the only way to do it properly. The only way. Oh, and do you like my trees? Pointing with his stick. Oh, and my lovely bushes. Don't you think they look pretty? I told you I hated ugliness. And of course, they're all edible. All made of something different and delicious. And do you like my meadows? Do you like my grass? Do you like my buttercups? The grass you're standing on, my dear children, is made of a new kind of soft, minty sugar that I've just invented. I call it swudge. Try a blade. Please do. It's delicious. Automatically, everyone bent down and picked one blade of grass. Everybody, that is, except Augustus Gloop, who took a huge handful. And Violet Beauregard, before tasting her blade of grass, what do you think she did? She took out her world record-breaking chewing gum and stuck it carefully behind her ear. Oh, isn't it wonderful? Whispered Charlie. Hasn't it got a wonderful taste, Grandpa? Oh, said Grandpa Joe, I could eat the whole field. I could go round on all fours like a cow and eat every blade of grass. Try a buttercup, cried Mr. Wonka. They're even nicer. Suddenly the air was filled with screams of excitement. The screams came from Veruca Salt. She was pointing frantically to the other side of the river. Look, look, it's moving. Look what's over there. What is it? It's definitely moving. Sorry, children. He's walking. It's a little person. It's a little man. Down there, see him, below the waterfall. Everybody stopped picking buttercups and stared across the river. She's right, Grandpa, cried Charlie. It is a little man. Can you see him? I see him, Charlie, said Grandpa Joe excitedly, and now everybody started shouting at once. There's two of them. My gosh, so there is. No, there's more than two. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a little picture of them. What do you think they are? What are they doing? Where do they come from? Who are they? Children and parents alike rushed down to the edge of the river to get a closer look. Oh, aren't they fantastic? They're no higher than my knee. Look at their funny long hair. The tiny men, they were no larger than medium-sized dolls, had stopped what they were doing, and now they were staring back across the river, looking at the visitors. One of them pointed towards the children, and then he whispered something to the other 4. And all 5 of them burst out laughing. But they can't be real people, Charlie said. Of course they're real people, said Mr. Wonka. They are the Oompa Loompas. And Sycamore, that's the end of chapter 15. So tomorrow, Mrs. Jenkins will read you chapter 16, all about the Oompa Loompas. So I hope you've had a super day. I'm really looking forward to seeing all of your work. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.